Andre Rebello lived a life millions envied, but none of it was real. Behind every perfect photo and luxury post was a man drowning in lies, desperately clinging to an illusion he couldn't escape. His fame was built on filters, his confidence on deception, and his downfall became one of the most shocking tragedies the internet had ever seen. Andre Rebello was the kind of person who seemed born for the internet age. Every picture he posted carried a glow of perfection. The golden sunlight falling just right, the smile polished yet casual, the background filled with symbols of success. He had the look of someone who had figured life out, someone others wished they could be. His followers called him the dreamer who made it real. But the truth was that none of it was real. The cars, the mansions, the expensive watches, all borrowed, rented, or staged. What started as a small trick to impress his friends had turned into a carefully constructed fantasy that millions believed in. Andre didn't just post content. He created an illusion so convincing that even he started to believe it. In the early days, his online journey was innocent. He was a college dropout trying to find his place, using social media to share glimpses of his daily life. Then, one photo changed everything. A shot of him standing beside a luxury car parked outside a high-end hotel. The post went viral, and overnight people started calling him an influencer. The attention was intoxicating. For the first time he felt seen, admired, and valued. The likes became a currency of validation, and Andre was hooked. He spent hours scrolling through comments, memorizing names of followers who praised him, deleting anything negative. It wasn't just about fame. It was about control, the ability to shape how others saw him. The more followers he gained, the harder it became to keep up the image. He rented luxury apartments for a few hours to take photos, borrowed clothes from designer friends, and used editing apps to enhance every detail. Behind the scenes, he lived in a modest apartment with peeling paint and overdue bills stacked on the kitchen counter. But no one saw that side of him. To the world, Andre was living a life of luxury and freedom. Every time he posted a photo, the comments poured in. "You're an inspiration. Goals. Teach us how to live like you." It felt good, almost like medicine for the emptiness he carried inside. Yet with every lie he told online, his real life slipped further out of reach. Andre's obsession with maintaining the illusion began to consume him. He stopped spending time with friends who knew the truth and surrounded himself with people who believed the lie. He started tracking his engagement statistics like a heartbeat, watching for spikes and drops as if his worth depended on it. The line between Andre the person and Andre the persona began to blur. His mornings started with photo shoots. His nights ended with anxiety. The pressure was constant. One wrong move, one unflattering post, and the empire he built on deception could collapse. But it wasn't just vanity driving him anymore. It was survival. His entire identity depended on the success of his online self. Sponsors started to notice him, sending free products and small payments for promotions. For the first time, he was earning money, and not much, but enough to keep the illusion alive. He began talking about hustle, manifestation, and success, pretending to be a life coach while hiding his own failures. People bought into it. They didn't see the debt collectors calling, the credit cards maxed out, or the sleepless nights spent wondering how to pay rent. As his following grew, so did his need to impress. He started promising things he couldn't deliver: business tips, luxury giveaways, and investment advice, all designed to keep people watching. The truth was he was improvising every day, hoping no one would notice the cracks forming behind the filter. He often stared at his reflection, unable to recognize the man looking back. The smile he wore for the camera had become permanent, masking the quiet panic that lived beneath. By the time the year ended, Andre had crafted a digital empire built entirely on lies. But with every new follower came a heavier sense of dread. He knew the truth couldn't stay hidden forever. Deep down, he feared the moment when the illusion would break, when the world would see the man behind the perfect photos. And though he didn't know it yet, that moment was coming soon, and it would change everything. Andre's rise on social media had turned into an addiction that fed off his insecurities. Every new follower felt like validation, every like a reassurance that he mattered. But what he didn't realize was that the same numbers that gave him purpose were also hollowing him out. His days began with endless scrolling, comparing himself to other influencers who seemed richer, happier, and more authentic. The more he compared, the more desperate he became to keep up. He was no longer creating for passion or connection. He was performing for survival. Every post was a carefully orchestrated illusion, designed to convince others that his life was better than theirs. His girlfriend, Isabella, was the only one who truly saw the truth behind the curtain. She watched as the man she loved disappeared into the glowing screen, replaced by a stranger obsessed with validation. He would spend hours rehearsing poses, retaking photos dozens of times, editing until the reflection of reality was unrecognizable. Their relationship, once filled with quiet comfort, had turned into a constant battle between who Andre was and who he pretended to be. But Andre didn't notice. The applause from strangers drowned out everything else. As his follower count crossed the 100,000 mark, Andre began attracting the attention of brands eager to work with him. For a while, it felt like his fantasy was becoming real. Packages began arriving at his apartment. Expensive watches, trendy clothes, and beauty products he didn't use but pretended to love. The brand deals made him feel legitimate, as if the lies he had told had somehow earned him this success. But sponsorships didn't pay the bills fast enough, and Andre wanted more. He wanted to live the life he'd been pretending to have. That's when the shortcuts began. He started collaborating with questionable companies that promised big returns, fake investment platforms, unlicensed crypto schemes, and luxury giveaway scams. Andre promoted them without hesitation, his smile as convincing as ever. To his followers, he was a mentor helping them make money. In reality, he was helping con artists trick them. Each post brought in quick cash, and Andre didn't ask questions. He told himself everyone exaggerated online, that it wasn't really hurting anyone. But deep down, he knew he was crossing a line. The first real warning came when a fan posted online about losing money to one of Andre's sponsored investment links. Others quickly followed, sharing screenshots and calling him a fraud. The internet began to turn against him, slowly and viciously. Andre brushed it off at first, telling himself it would blow over. But the comments grew harsher, and the brands started pulling out. For the first time, he could feel the weight of his lies closing in. Instead of stopping, Andre did what he always did. He doubled down. He began posting even more frequently, showing off a lifestyle that looked richer than ever. He rented cars for photo shoots, bought fake designer goods, and staged elaborate scenes of success. To the outside world, he was thriving, but in reality, he was unraveling. His sleep became restless, haunted by the fear that someone would expose him. His messages to Isabella became short and distracted, his phone constantly buzzing with notifications that felt more like alarms. He began spending more time alone, avoiding anyone who questioned him. The isolation made him anxious, but he couldn't stop. His self-worth had become entirely dependent on maintaining the illusion. Every like gave him temporary relief, and every negative comment sent him spiraling. He wasn't living for himself anymore. He was living for the algorithm, feeding it pieces of his sanity with every post. As the months passed, Andre's world began to shrink. His debts grew, his relationships crumbled, and his sense of identity faded. He could no longer tell where the real Andre ended and the online one began. The man smiling in the photos was a stranger, one who always seemed to be in control, while the man behind the camera was falling apart. The life he had built on lies was beginning to eat him alive, and the line between fantasy and reality was starting to blur beyond repair. The Unraveling of Andre's online empire began with a single photograph, the one that was supposed to restore his image after the backlash from the failed brand deals. He had rented a sleek new sports car for the weekend, a bright red machine that screamed wealth and success. He took dozens of photos beside it, wearing sunglasses that reflected the city skyline. When he posted the picture with the caption, "Hard work always pays off," it exploded across social media. For a few fleeting hours, Andre felt the rush again. The comments pouring in, the admiration returning, the illusion breathing back to life. But this time it didn't last. A local car dealership recognized the vehicle and exposed him online, revealing that it had been rented for a short-term shoot. The truth spread faster than he could delete it. Within hours, Andre's name was trending for all the wrong reasons. People mocked him, calling him a fraud, a fake, a man addicted to his own lies. The same followers who once adored him now turned against him. Every corner of the internet echoed with judgment. Screenshots of his older posts were dissected, his claims about businesses and investments questioned. Influencers who once collaborated with him quietly deleted their posts together, pretending they never knew him. His entire reputation, built on illusion, began to crumble like sand under a wave. The fallout hit Andre harder than anyone imagined. The validation that once kept him alive now turned into poison. He spent days inside his apartment with the curtains drawn, the blue light of his phone illuminating his tired face. He read every comment, unable to stop himself even though each one cut deeper. Sleep became impossible. He would lie awake replaying the moment the lie was exposed, imagining the laughter of people he had never met. It wasn't just humiliation. It was the collapse of the only identity he had left. Brands pulled their contracts. Sponsorship payments stopped. His online income disappeared overnight. Without the illusion, there was nothing to hold on to. Andre tried to create new content to win back followers, but everything he posted was flooded with hate. People no longer saw a glamorous influencer. They saw a manipulator. His messages to sponsors went unanswered, and his inbox filled with demands for refunds and threats of lawsuits. The world he built so carefully had turned against him completely. Isabella tried to reach out, but he pushed her away. He couldn't face her, not after she had warned him so many times. Her concern only reminded him of how far he had fallen. He began drinking heavily, convincing himself it would help him think, but it only made him spiral faster. The apartment that once served as his creative space now felt like a prison, filled with the ghosts of who he pretended to be. Every object, the fake luxury items, the rented props, the lights, reminded him of the deception that had destroyed him. His obsession with social media didn't stop even in his downfall. He scrolled endlessly, unable to look away from the chaos. He watched reaction videos mocking him, read headlines that called him a warning for the dangers of influencer culture. He tried to defend himself in comment sections, but his words only fueled more hate. The internet was merciless, and Andre didn't know how to exist without it. The same audience that once gave him life now seemed intent on erasing him completely. His friends stopped answering his calls. His family avoided questions about him, and Isabella finally left, tired of trying to save someone who no longer wanted to be saved. Alone, surrounded by the shattered pieces of a life that was never real, Andre began to realize just how fragile his existence had become. The fame he once chased had vanished, leaving only silence in its place. The lights, the lenses, and the filters were gone. And for the first time in years, Andre saw himself clearly. But by then, the reflection staring back was hollow, broken, and filled with a fear that something worse was yet to come. Andre disappeared from social media for nearly a month after the scandal, but when he returned, his followers were shocked to see him posting again. The first photo was simple, a black and white portrait with the caption, "Rebuilding." It drew sympathy from some, curiosity from others. Then, over the next few days, he began teasing something bigger, something he called his new beginning. Short clips appeared on his stories showing meetings, contracts being signed, and luxury offices. He promised a new business venture that would silence his critics once and for all. To many, it looked like a comeback. But those close to him knew there was nothing real behind it. Andre was once again faking everything, trying to resurrect the illusion that had destroyed him. Behind the camera, his life was worse than ever. The rent was overdue, the credit cards were maxed out, and his phone was filled with messages from people demanding money back from his past promotions. His savings were gone, and every day brought new threats of legal action. Still, he refused to accept defeat. He told himself that if he could just convince the world he was successful again, the money would follow. He spent what little he had left on rented suits, a borrowed office space, and a videographer who believed he was documenting a real project. The company didn't exist. It was nothing more than a collection of props and scripted shots. The pressure weighed heavily on him. His hands shook whenever he tried to record himself. He started taking pills to stay awake, to work longer, to edit faster. He became paranoid that someone would discover the truth again. Yet in his desperation, he also found a strange sense of power. Deception was the only thing he had ever been good at, and he clung to it like a lifeline. He rehearsed every word of his upcoming launch video, making sure his tone sounded confident, his eyes looked hopeful, and his smile seemed genuine. The irony was cruel. He was trying to rebuild his life by falling into the same trap that had ruined it. When the big reveal finally came, Andre uploaded a polished video announcing the birth of his new company, a supposed tech startup that promised to redefine the future of digital influence. The production quality was impressive, with cinematic shots of boardrooms, laptops, and luxury cars. The response was instant. People shared the video, calling it an inspiring comeback. For a moment, it felt like he had won. The numbers climbed again. The comments turned positive, and a few small investors reached out asking for details. Andre felt alive for the first time in months, but the success was short-lived. Within days, journalists and skeptical followers began digging into the details. There was no registered business under the name Andre used. No office lease, no employees. Every image from his video was traced back to stock footage or rented locations. The truth came out faster than he could control it. The same people who had praised his return now called it another elaborate scam. The backlash this time was even worse. News outlets picked up the story, labeling him the influencer who faked everything. He became the subject of podcasts, documentaries, and viral memes. The laughter was everywhere, echoing in places he couldn't escape. Andre deleted the video, shut down comments, and went silent again. But the silence was no longer peaceful. It was suffocating. His world had become a blur of regret and fear. The apartment grew darker, littered with empty bottles and forgotten camera equipment. He barely ate, spending hours staring at his phone as if waiting for something. Maybe forgiveness, maybe a way out. His reputation was beyond repair, and he knew it. He had lost everything: the fame, the money, the love, and the illusion of control. What remained was a man trapped in a life that was never real to begin with. And though no one knew it yet, Andre had already decided how his story would end. A month after Andre vanished from social media, a jogger found his car parked beside a quiet lake on the outskirts of the city. The windows were fogged, the doors locked, and the keys still in the ignition. When police arrived, they found his wallet, phone, and a folded note on the passenger seat. News of his disappearance spread quickly. At first, many believed it was another stunt, a dramatic way to gain attention or rebrand himself. But as the hours turned into days and the days into weeks, that hope faded. The influencer who had once lived his entire life online had suddenly gone completely silent. The note left behind revealed the truth that Andre had kept hidden for years. In shaky handwriting, he confessed that he could no longer live under the weight of his own creation. He wrote about how the chase for perfection had consumed him, how every lie told online became a chain that tightened around his real life. He admitted that the pressure to keep up appearances had turned him into someone he didn't recognize, someone hollow, deceitful, and desperate for love from strangers who never truly knew him. He wrote about Isabella too, apologizing for driving her away and for losing the one person who had seen through the act from the beginning. When police released the details to the public, the internet reacted with shock. Thousands of comments flooded in under his old posts, turning his once glamorous feed into a memorial. Some mourned him. Others criticized him even in death, calling him manipulative and selfish. But beneath all the noise, a few people began to understand the deeper tragedy, that Andre had been a reflection of everything wrong with the digital world. He had built his identity from likes, shares, and comments, never realizing that the moment they disappeared, he would too. Investigators later revealed that Andre had been living in near total isolation for weeks before his disappearance. His phone history showed hours spent scrolling through hate threads and articles about himself. The final messages he sent were to unpaid sponsors, begging for more time to make things right. But there was nothing left to fix. His accounts were banned, his partnerships ended, and his reputation destroyed. He had nowhere to go and no one left to turn to. The world that once celebrated him had turned him into a cautionary tale. Andre's body was found 3 days later, not far from where the car had been parked. The official report called it a tragic suicide. The story dominated headlines for weeks, not because of the mystery but because of what it represented. The dark side of the influencer dream. People who once admired him began sharing their own struggles with online pressure, admitting that they too felt trapped by the need to appear perfect. The tragedy of Andre Rebello became a turning point for many, a sobering reminder that behind the screens and filters were fragile people, pretending to be stronger than they were. In the months that followed, documentaries, podcasts, and essays explored his story. They analyzed every post, every caption, every image, searching for clues that might have revealed his pain. Yet what they found was simple. Andre had always been chasing something he could never catch. He wanted validation, not for what he was, but for what he pretended to be. And when that illusion shattered, there was nothing left to hold on to. His final post, still pinned to his abandoned account, was a picture of a sunset captioned, "The end of one chapter is the start of another." For many it was now painfully symbolic. In death, Andre had found the peace that fame never gave him. His story became both a warning and a reflection, a reminder that in a world obsessed with appearances, the cost of pretending can be a life itself. The tragedy of Andre Rebello was not just about a man who lied to the world, but about a world that rewarded the lie until it destroyed him.